Hello and welcome to Reviews. As always, I'm Plume Noir, and I am right next to two cats right now. We got Butters here, we got JR who's needing the bed. Um, so it has been kind of crazy for me. You may notice absence. What this means is I've been getting called into work constantly. In fact, I just came back from work, which will be the third time I went to work today. So I really need to do something about that because I've been getting way behind in my videos. I got so many things. I might just do kind of like a monthly roundup, for stuff that I didn't get a chance to focus on completely, because there are a bunch of books out there that I'm enjoying. Some I'm not enjoying. That I just haven't had a chance to get to. But anyway, this is House of X number 3. Now I know some people have talked about, like in the last video, how I did it. You can't make everyone happy. I do appreciate. I catch up on some comments. It's like I don't want to do spoilers because some people don't like spoilers. And try and work up the anticipation, but some people want the spoilers, and so. It's still trying to figure out how to do this and how to best cover a series like this. Because I think this right now has been the best thing Marvel has put out in a while. I cannot think of a book, or I guess you would say a series, that has really hooked me and has me thinking about it and putting any type of thought into it, pretty much at all. And I have to give them credit. This has been doing that. So, this is House of X number 3. We're at the midpoint of the 2 series, so think of this as smack dab in the middle of Act 2. So there's going to be some spoilers in here, so let's try and do it that way. We'll just put some spoilers because I do want to show the last page, and I do want to talk about a few things. So, what did I think of this book? I'll say it up front in case you want to skip spoilers. It did just come out today. And as you know, I did lose my backup comic shop, so I am down to getting some of these books that I don't have on my pull list from Comixology, which I hate. So you'll probably be seeing that a little bit more, because I do have another comic shop, but it's kind of out of the way. It's about equidistant, but it's a pain in the ass to get to, because it's always just high traffic area. So anyway, what did I think of this book? This issue here, I'm going to go with a 1 o'clock. I'm going to go with a 1 o'clock because I think we are in the middle of Act 2. And so unless I'm just looking at the overall narrative, I think Hickman really is going to have to come hard and fast, that's what she said, at the last half of this series. Because there's a lot of buildup, a lot of stuff going on that's, the seeds are being laid. But then when you look at where we are in the book at the halfway point, you would think, I don't know, it seems like we're not quite there yet. So I'm hoping the ending doesn't kind of miff out. But anyway, this book, we're back to, I don't want to say the current timeline, because I don't think we're in the current 616 timeline. I think that's Moira's 11th life. Where this is Moira X, which Moira 10. And remember, Destiny said she would have 10 lives, maybe 11. Destiny isn't always right. So, I mean, heck, for all we know, Moira can reincarnate 13, 15, 27 times. And what's interesting about this is that, I had something on my tablet. She is not showing up in this section. Remember when we saw earlier parts of her, earlier history where she was telling Xavier what happened? Well, so we found out the other issue, the last issue, which was the Powers of X. The big spoiler, it was a suicide mission, which was, that future was part of the Apocalypse timeline, where they had a suicide mission to get the plans for Nimrod. And that's what we're finding out in this issue. The big thing is that it seems that the X-Men, and here's where we're going to start getting into spoiler stuff, the X-Men are looking to stop Nimrod, the construction of Nimrod, which makes me wonder because Nimrod is already a thing. Like I said, going back to Uncanny X-Men 205, maybe? I'm pulling this just off the top of my head. I remember the issues when, it was still John Romita Jr. on the book. And, yeah, if I recall correctly. So Nimrod is already a thing. And they're trying to stop the whole thing is they're trying to stop a Nimrod from being created. But as we saw in Powers of X, Nimrod had already been created and even became, Nimrod the Greater far into the future. So, when they were trying to do the Ascension. 5 minutes in, I haven't even really opened the book. And that's when JR is coming up here, just kind of push him off to the side. So let's take a look here. I'm going to have to skip a bit. I got to figure out what exactly I need to skip. So we open up with Cyclops being given a mission from Xavier and Magneto. And basically, they make it seem like it's a suicide mission. There's a heavy theme of death in this book, which I don't think is unimportant whatsoever, and I don't think it's just navel-gazing. One thing that I've noticed is, and I mentioned this in a previous video, letterers will do the bold or put things in italics to stress certain words to kind of give it more of a verbal feel, so you can actually read it, not just plain. You can actually kind of get an idea of what the inflections are. What's really interesting is the way Professor Xavier seems to constantly go from whole sentences in italics back to regular text. Whereas, like, Scott says, is it wrong that I'm afraid, that I have doubts? Again, those are, to showcase inflections, just words that Scott would be stressing. But Xavier tends to do entire sentences like that, almost like he's quoting something. And trying to find another one. I think there's another one on the next page, maybe. So yeah, we have them talking about their plan. And basically, Cyclops has assembled a crew of X-Men, and they're going to go to the mother mold that's being built on the space station orbiting the sun. And, they're not going to take any plants with them because they don't want the... sounds weird to say this, the plant technology. They don't want any samples of the plants to fall into the human hands. They don't want them to figure out something about Krakoa that they themselves don't know, which is very interesting. Also interesting, why is Jean Grey back in her Marvel girl outfit? So they plan, they're going to board up to go to the space station. And they have a little talk about, trying to keep casualties to a minimum. But as Wolverine points out, these are scientists working on something that would, kill off an entire race. Genocide. How innocent are they really? So yeah, the theme is death. And they take off from their base on the moon. The Krakoan base on the moon. And here we have just the Hickman guides things that he's been doing. Here's the Nimrod progression. It starts with the Sentinels, we all know those, the Master Mold, the Mother Mold, and then the Omega Sentinel, which we have seen a couple times, and then the Nimrod, a pure nano Sentinel construct, anti-mutant, adaptive, self-aware, self-replicating, virtually indestructible. Again, goes with what we saw with way back in Nimrod's first appearance, which... One thing I do like, going back to Claremont, most people are used to Nimrod being used to call someone like a idiot or a nincompoop. He's just a Nimrod. No, you go back to the biblical meaning of the phrase. A Nimrod is a hunter. Okay, Nimrod is a hunter, and which fits perfectly with someone who is a sentinel. And then we get the timeline. And this is Hickman filling stuff in. Basically talks about how we got there from here. From the last issue, how it got to Moira's life, what she learned, which was the Nimrod plan. She dies, and they have the Orcus protocols, which is the space station that's being built. They've actually been monitoring, um, using the things that Moira learns, and oh, I thought that was something on my tablet. Using the information that Moira learns, um, with each life. Now they're looking for, the mother mold being built. And here's Project Achilles. I'd probably skip a huge bit of this. Project Achilles is a superhuman, super maximum security prison built to house only a maximum of 30 superpowered criminals, the worst of the worst. Achilles has all the necessary components, blah, blah, blah. Security and judicial staff that rotates on and off site every 3 months. Once someone arrives at Achilles, they stay at Achilles until their shift is over. So basically, we have a super prison. It does say judicial and security staff, but one thing that's really I have a couple little things about this book. A couple little things. This one, and it could be because it's a timeline thing. It's a super prison, right? Super maximum prison. Prison. Only the worst of the worst, right? So here we are in a silly super prison with super high ceilings and a judge that needs a ladder to get up to his lectern. Attorney General Tolliver, as they're about to hear the case of their client. The defendant is Sabretooth. Okay, so yeah, there's a few little jokes about, his manners and everything, but I'm a little confused on how this works. This doesn't seem to be a sentencing because he does have a defendant. There does seem to be a prosecutor, and also they say how the defense attorney tries to move to dismiss, because he was an unwilling accomplice, had no idea what they were up to. So this is a trial, but he's already at the superhuman, supermax Project Achilles super prison. So why is he at this prison that, the staff stays at? It's the worst of the worst. They keep him isolated. If he hasn't been sentenced, why is he already there? It seems to me that you wouldn't have the trial, all the way here and then say, oh, well, he could be innocent, so let's just ship him back. No, you send him there after he's been found guilty. So, yeah, let's go ahead. Let me pull this down. I always screw this up here. There we go. I'm going to skip a few pages. I'm just going to kind of slide over to the side. Basically, White Queen and the Stepford Cuckoos show up, or what's left of them, and use the Krakoan diplomatic immunity to free them. And there is another chart for the Omega Sentinel construction process and how one actually gets created. Then we get back to the Orcus Forge, and this is the facility that is building the mother mold around the sun. And yeah, so here we have the Omega Sentinel here, talking about how, you built a mother mold to breed master molds. The second you lose control, it's hard not to see the entire planetary system covered in cold, emotionless gray, and not a single pink, fleshy bit in sight. After all, they know where mutants come from. Again, death to everything. Just, the Sentinels, just whether they assimilate or kill everything, just take over everything. A lot of this is like, the Terminator, because they say that a Nimrod, when the technology gets to a certain point, that's when the time is right for a Nimrod. But a Nimrod can be avoided. So the X-Men then race to the base, and they talk, and of course the humans are freaking out because they had no idea that the X-Men would even knew they existed. And of course these are all the scientists from Hydra and Shield and Sword and everyone else. All the other teams got together. All the bad guys got together to, good guys and bad guys got together to save humanity. And they had no idea how the X-Men even twigged on that they were there. But the X-Men are flying in a Shi'ar jet, spacecraft. They know they can't compete with that. And even though they have Sentinels on Mercury for some reason, maybe getting resources for the mother mold, I should say, they won't get there in time. So the plan is to have Nightcrawler teleport in from the ship to do recon because there is a failsafe in place. You pull these four connectors, whatever, however they work, and it ejects the mother mold into the sun. In case things go awry. The X-Men's plan is to do just that. Here's the other little quibble I have, just a little quibble, and it's Nightcrawler being on the spaceship. I just hit the phone and teleporting into the space station. Even if he has the plans, it's always been said that Nightcrawler cannot teleport where he can't see or doesn't already know the surroundings and know the area. And, because there's always a chance that he'll teleport into something, whether it be a wall or even a person standing there. Um, that's long been a story, like, kind of a limitation of his power. And, especially the farther the distances, I think I read once, and I don't know, these things fluctuate all the time. I think, Nightcrawler's power was only good for like a mile. I think that was like kind of the limit. He can only go a mile away, and that's really close when you're in a spaceship that's heading toward a space center. So Nightcrawler sees Omega Sentinel, recognizes her, teases her about what side she's on, and the guards are now getting together. Um, and we get this one guard here who realizes what the X-Men are doing. He points out that the humans are reacting very linearly, and the X-Men aren't going to do that. Instead, they're going to land in a very um, a very good position that they can access all the areas, and they're just going to drill into the ceiling, which he just happens to be in the right spot. So he takes his weapons. He even mentions, wishes, he had the kids that he wanted. The line here is kind of weird. I joked about it a lot, but I really wish we had kids. I think that's a typo. I think that's supposed to be, but I do really wish we had kids. So, yeah, I'm not going to take it out on that. That's a quibble. But he blows himself up. Um, so that he would be remembered, for a better world for humans. And looks like he takes out the X-Men with him. Now remember, in the first issue, we saw what looked to be the X-Men being birthed from pods. And this Wolverine, we haven't seen him pop his claws. He could be one of these burst mutants because he's on the ship. And or it could be that that was the real Wolverine, but some of the other X-Men, because we did see the original five being birthed, but it was Archangel, not regular Angel. So maybe some of these aren't the real X-Men, well, at least the real X-Men in this timeline. Still a lot of questions. Who knows, they might even still survive this, although they don't really have anyone on the board that has any type of force field powers. I can think of off the top of my head. And then we go into the last page, well, one of the last pages here. They finally release what the alphabet is. They give the cipher for it. So yeah, like I said, I didn't bother to translate. I could have figured it out, but I'm too lazy. I'm too busy. So yeah, this book is a lot about death, and even starts off with Professor X telling Scott that he will never die as long as he's remembered, and who would forget, the man who founded a nation. So, what what is really being played at here is, again, with every question answered, there are more questions. Now, obviously, they're trying to stop Nimrod, and Nimrod is not inevitable. And they're going to do everything they can to stop that from happening. So yeah, that's Powers of X, just real quick here, 15 minutes or so, not including my babbling beforehand. Um, and what did I think of it? Well, there is still the whole thing of the other uh, part where we see the White Queen, Emma Frost, release Sabretooth. Um, why was Mystique on here? Of course, she's a shapeshifter. It seems like Archangel would not be a good person to be here in a close counter combat area on a space station. Um, but as Xavier said, and Scott said, for their team, it all has to be people who are willing, to die for their cause. And but Could they just be recloned from Krakoa? Is that why he didn't give them any seeds? Why they're not taking any seeds? Any of the Krakoan seeds? Not just so the humans won't figure out any secrets. And what secrets does Krakoa have? Because we've already seen that there is those dark spaces or whatever that they don't know. There's so much stuff going on with this book, with this series, that I'm really hoping we start getting some answers because we're halfway through the book, and yeah, it's like I admit I kind of want more. I have not been this excited for a Marvel book in so long. You put out something like this where the art is good. I think it's Lopez. Hickman's writing is, it teases just enough. It gives a little bit, but leaves you wanting more. And I've even gotten used to these the pages where it's like, yeah, you could probably tell story, or some of these have story potentials that we'll never see, but I'm okay. Kind of the whole history of the Nimrod and all that stuff. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm excited. I'm enjoying this book, and it's amazing that Marvel can have something like this right next to that horrendous Spider Gwen book. That Spider Gwen, not Spider Gwen, Gwenpool Strikes Back. That's the two opposite ends. It's amazing to me. 'Cause I remember a time when you could pull off from the racks, five Marvel comics that came out that week, five books, and they were all good. And they weren't insulting or just silly, banter with, artists that were doing fan art, 6 months ago. So, oh, it's nice to see. It's nice to see some quality. I hope it lasts. I really hope it lasts. But anyway, once again, if you stayed with this far, trying a little different, giving a little bit of spoilers in the beginning, come back 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock's my rating. So as always, thanks for watching. Work's gonna be rough. I gotta go back in tomorrow night after work, so I might do another lab video. I got that Marvel 1000, and it's kind of thick. I don't know if I'm going to be doing that one. Batman, Curse of the White Knight #2. Oh, I'm also enjoying that book. So, anyways, as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.